Folks, it's Monday, which means it's time for Monday Night Nerd. Welcome, one and all. How's everybody doing tonight? It is a great night here. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We're going to be talking all about cosplay competitions, and I hope you are doing well. If you want the show, my name is Corp Cosplay. I'm a cosplayer in the Southern Ontario area. I've been cosplaying for over a decade. I've been going to cons for 15 years, and we are going to have a fun show tonight because we are going to be talking all about cosplay competitions because we have been having some trouble in the cosplay competition world. There have been a lot of feedback from cosplayers, some problems with some cosplayers, and some cosplay competitions, and we are going to talk all about that because I want to do more cosplay competitions, and I got some opinions because, again, I've been doing this for over 10 years. So we're going to get into that in the nitty-gritty. But first, we have some news, as always. I'm glad to see everybody in chat. We got Lady Akari, we have Booster Joe, we have Pretty Nerdy, and I hope a lot more of you. Let's get into the news. There's not a lot of news this week. By the way, we're streaming on a bunch of different places, so if anybody has any connection problems, especially on YouTube, hit me in the chat, say we're having connection problems. I'm seeing the bars kind of go up and down. My wife is also streaming games right now, and she said to give her a heads up if we are having any issues. So if the quality starts sucking, let me know, please, because I want this to be a good topic, and we got a few minutes until it's skipping a bit. Okay, well, I'm going to give it... We're going to go through the news, and then before we hit the main event, if it starts screwing up again, let me know after we get through the first news topic, and then we'll change it, and I'll send a message down saying, you're done gaming for a little bit, which she is perfectly fine with, or maybe we'll kill something else, but it seems okay now. Cool. All right, let's keep it that way. Newsy news! We got two topics tonight. It's been a slow news week. Nothing really big going on. I think the one that everyone's been talking about right now, Netflix and WB, is the big thing right now. Netflix announced they will be purchasing the WB Hollywood studio. This is big news if you have any care about movies or entertainment, because this is going to be one of the biggest buyouts in entertainment, because you have a giant of Netflix wanting to compete with the world, and they are going to be just filling their infinity gauntlet with another stone with the Warner Brothers property, which includes Harry Potter, the DC Universe, and a whole bunch more. I know recently, I believe this morning, Paramount announced that they are going to be Paramount was through in an offer at the last minute to see if they can maybe purchase. I highly doubt that's going to happen. How much did they buy it for? $72 billion with a B. $72 billion. This will include HBO Max, TV shows like Game of Thrones, Sopranos, White Lotus, etc. It does not mention in any of the materials that anything about WB Games, which is important for someone like myself because WB Games is all your Batman games, but more importantly, NetherRealm is owned by WB, which is the Mortal Kombat franchise. So if you're a fighting game franchise fan, this is something you really need to think about, because if they just go, we don't really want this on our books, what happens to NetherRealm? Do they become an independent studio? Do they need to go to another company? I don't know. So we're going to see what happens. From a customer standpoint, it can go a couple different ways. I know a lot of people are worried that Netflix is going to buy this franchise or this entire company and just throw all of their movies onto Netflix, and they're going to possibly kill HBO Max and just make it one big platform with everything on it. And what does that mean for movies in the future? Does that mean they're going to be equal distribution on TV, on Netflix and theaters? Is that going to still be a lot of movies in theaters? We don't know. So anybody that's coming out now and speculating on what that means is just doing that, speculating. That is all rumor and innuendo. I personally see the positive sides as a customer, because having everything in one spot is a nice thing. You know, I'm a big Looney Tunes fan. I'm a big DC fan. So having all those easily available, because we don't have HBO Max easily up here in Canada, having it all on Netflix would be very nice. I do understand the monopoly side of it and how this is going to possibly put a lot of people out of business because you don't need two of the same staff in two different companies. So there's the yin and the yang of it. Unfortunately, I am just a small boy from Hamilton, Ontario. I don't really play a factor in this, so I can't really say anything. I can't really do anything about it, so it's not really keeping me up at night. But if I was someone who, was someone who worked for HBO Max or works for HBO, I would be a little worried, which kind of sucks because I don't want people out of jobs, especially, this close to the holidays. And I'm not saying they're going to kill it the next, 2-3 weeks, but it's still going into the holiday season knowing that this is something that could probably go through in 2026 if they go through all the political side of it, where that all has to be approved, obviously, which certain people in the political field have already put their 2 cents on, but when doesn't he? But yeah, so that's kind of the big news right now. It is still all up in the air. They still do have to approve a whole bunch of stuff because this is a major acquisition, and Netflix is just running. I mean, they bought they brought the rights for WWE last year, and they've been killing it on Netflix and WWE. I've watched more WWE in the past year than I have in the past probably 5 years since the pandemic. So they won me as a fan. Like, I've gone back and watched a ton of old pay-per-views. I've watched Raw a couple times, especially with this year with John Cena's retirement. So, and I can't say anything bad about that. As a fan, I'm excited about this and getting the opportunity to see a whole bunch of the old DC stuff, seeing, having easy access to Batman, the animated series, Superman, the animated series, all of the DC movies from the past, having all the Batmans easily available. That'd be nice. But again, the positive of that means possibly people are out of a job. That kind of sucks. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Sadly, that is the only positive news, and even that's kind of up in the air depending on who you are. The only other thing we got to talk about tonight is if you're a cosplayer or in the cosplay community in the Ontario area, we lost someone this week. And it's never fun to talk about loss. I used to do a segment here on the show where we talk weekly about celebrities that we lost. It was kind of a running gag at the beginning. When I first started the show, it was thanks for the memories. And I kind of killed it pretty quick because it was a downer. But if there ever is someone who passed away that plays a factor in my life, or, is someone, sadly, like this one that we all kind of knew if you're in the Ontario area, Cosplay Q. If you know him, he was a big part of the cosplay community here in the Ontario area. He is no longer with us. The details of it are pretty low. We don't really know a lot. We just know that he is unfortunately no longer with us. I think we'll learn more later on once, the family has grieved and a whole bunch of other stuff. I didn't know him that well, so I feel like I need to say something because I am part of the cosplay community in Ontario, but I didn't know him that well. Like, we ran into each other a couple times at cons, mostly Fan Expo. Always had a smile on his face, always a nice guy. He had a killer Sabretooth cosplay, which I told him every time I saw him in it. I was like, dude, I'm so jealous of that cosplay. I really wish I could pull that off, and he rocked it. Yeah, we did a couple. I know we talked at one point about doing he's got a Wolverine, and we were going to do at some point, if we ever met at one point, it would be a Wolverine Gambit shoot. But obviously that's not going to happen. Again, I'd love to go into more detail. I'd love to talk more about, more personal things about him, but unfortunately I don't have any of those personal things. Like I said, we've talked off occasionally at Fan Expo, and that's kind of it. I probably had 5 or 6 conversations with them in my whole life. I know there are definitely some people in the cosplay community who are a lot closer to him. I know there is a GoFundMe going on for him right now to help pay for funeral expenses and stuff, which if you got $1 or $2, it'd be great to support. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer. I know I saw when a couple people were posting about when they couldn't find him, there was a few people posting, if you've talked to him, let us know. And not long after that, unfortunately, he was no longer. It was announced that he's no longer with us. So it's a bummer. Like, it really is. And again, I kind of feel like I have to talk about it a bit, but I also feel bad because I'm like, I wasn't close to him. But yeah, it sucks. And so, as we used to do on the show, and we will do for you, sir, thank you for the memories. I know a lot of people out there in the cosplay community knew you well, and I know some of them are hurting a lot more than myself right now. So condolences to you, your family, and anyone else who knew you very well. So sorry to see. Hate having to do those, but unfortunately it happens. All right, let's do a like, subscribe, and then we'll jump into a sponsor. Folks, if you're here tonight, I greatly appreciate it. If you can hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, all those things, it would mean a lot. Sponsor, as always, you guys know this. It's my beautiful, loving, amazing, incredible wife. She is always my sponsor because she is incredible. Like, it's easy to say. It was real funny a couple nights ago. It was last night or the night before. I was live on TikTok, just doing some cosplay work, doing some 3D prints for a buddy. And someone came in the chat and was asking, I guess they knew me from here and stuff, and they're like, you talk about your wife, but she's never on the videos. Like, she's never in any of your content. I'm like, yeah, because she doesn't want to be. She doesn't want to be in any of my content. You will probably, unless you see her at a convention, which is very rare because she's gone to conventions 100 times before she met me. She's done with it now, so this is all my stuff. So you'll probably never run into her. But if you do, that's my wife. She doesn't like being on the show or anything. So, hun, you will always be my sponsor, and I appreciate everything you do here for supporting me on this fun journey called podcasting. All right. We're only 12 minutes in, but this is going to be a big topic. So let's jump into the main event, folks. Let's talk about cosplay competitions, because this was a topic I was not planning on doing. I had a whole nother show kind of written out, figured out, but then I've seen a lot recently about different cosplayers and different people outside of the community, just influencers, whoever they are, having opinions on cosplay competitions. And, not liking the results, not being a fan of the competitions, not being fans of the judges, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I've been doing this for a while. I don't know if you'd call me a veteran, but I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been going to cons for 15. And I don't remember this much stuff going on with cosplay competitions. Maybe because I wasn't that big into it then, and now I kind of am. I'm hearing it more. But I kind of want to give my 2 cents on what I think some people are talking about, what some thoughts are on some things that have happened. We're not going to talk about specific incidents because there's 100 of them. There's cosplay competition every other weekend, and there's probably 100 things that aren't being talked about online by everybody. So we're just going to talk in generalities on things that I've seen, things that I've seen people talk about, and we're just going to kind of go point by topic, and we're going to talk about it a bit. As I said, if you don't know me and you were watching this at some point, I have been in the cosplay community for 10 years. I have won several awards from different competitions. I have guested in cons. I am nowhere near an expert. I am nowhere near an expert at this. I am just giving one person's opinion from what I've seen and what I've heard. If something comes up that I'm like, I dealt with this or I've seen this happen personally, I will. But other than that, this will be generalities because I haven't seen every competition in the world. And I will be looking at this from 2 standpoints. I'll be looking at it through 3 standpoints. I will be looking at it from a cosplayer standpoint. I will be looking at it through a judge standpoint, and I will be looking at it as an audience member standpoint, because that is something that I feel like is not really addressed as much, because as important as the relationship between judges and contestants is, the audience plays a giant factor into it. because we could do a competition and all that, but the audience does play a factor into this. Because if not, you're just going to do this competition behind closed doors, or you're going to do it into an empty room, which is boring. So this will play a factor on all three sides. So let's start off with the first point, and this is something I think that a lot of cosplayers have dealt with, and I've seen it many times over the past few years, and I've had many cosplayers actually come to me and talk about it because I've been so vocal about cosplay competitions and how I'm not a fan of certain ways that it's done, and that is the inconsistent judging standards across events. It doesn't matter what competitions you go to. If you go to one competition and then you go to another competition, the judging and the way the competition is laid out is going to be completely different. And that is something that I think a lot of people are running into a problem with. And I specifically see this because I started going to Fan Expo, and that was my big convention. 3-day convention, loved it, went to all the cosplay competitions, competed in a bunch of them. And then after a certain point, I was talking to my wife, and she was working at a convention near the Toronto area called Anime North. I am not an anime fan, so I had no interest in this con, but she said, you should come to it because it is very cosplay centric. And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I'm still not an anime fan, but Anime North has become one of my favorite cons because of the cosplay side of it. And the way that they run a convention is very different than a Fan Expo. A Fan Expo convention, at least for Fan Expo Canada, you get judged during the day, you show up later in the night, you stand in the back, you walk across stage, you pose 3 times, you walk off, they do judging, they give you an award, you walk out, end of the night. Anime North, you get there, you hang out, you do whatever you want all day. Before the competition, you show up, you get judging right before you get out, you get ready to go out, you go out, you have a minute on stage where you can play audio, you can do whatever you want, then you go off stage. The judging happens overnight. You come back the next day, and there's a whole celebration about awards. Very different way to do things. And if it's a smaller con, like a Niagara Falls or something like that, that is a completely different one. That is a quick boom, 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 boom competition. The thing with the judging is the judging with these competitions is so different that you really don't know what you're walking into. And I can specifically see this when I go from a Fan Expo to an Anime North. When it comes to an Anime North judging, I feel like I have everything is sort of, I don't want to say it's broken up by class, but it kind of is broken up by class. Fan Expo has their levels of like novice, journeyman, master, and Anime North has the same. But when it comes to judging and being in the judges room and talking to the judges, I have to admit, and I've had other cosplayers say this to me without me kind of poking at them about it, so I feel like I'm justified saying this. I don't care how good of a foam cosplay I do. I don't care how good of a 3D print I do. I don't feel like I can compete with seamsters anymore when it comes to a Fan Expo competition. I feel like the seamstress competition side of it has taken over that side of it, the Fan Expo side of it, and I feel like that I don't feel like I compete anymore. I feel like I could give it a shot. I feel like they'd put me in the competition, but just the level that the scrutiny of the type of seams they do and all the materials and all that stuff. I'm not a seamster, so I don't know all the language, but just the intricate detail that some cosplayers go into, I feel like I can't compete with that. And I've had, like I said, I've had other cosplayers come to me in the foam world and in the 3D printing world where they're like, I don't care what we do unless we build every 3D file from scratch, or we have a mill that we make our own foam. We can't compete with sewing because it's such a detailed type of way of doing it. Boomster Joe says the sewing is insanely impressive, and I'm not saying it isn't. There are some that are incredible. that I just am blown away when I see them. Uh, and Nerdy Crystal said, I feel Boomster thing is way harder. Yeah, and that's the thing. It really depends. Everybody kind of has their specialty. Mine is foam. Mine's getting a little bit more 3D printing, but sewing is a part of it. So I definitely feel like when you go into a competition and you kind of see the judges, and the judges not being able to judge evenly from competition to competition, which is hard because different cons have different judges. Like some have one that are like Anime North. I'm pretty sure they're all the same judges every single year. With a Fan Expo, it's whoever's, cosplay guesting at that point, and if they want to be a part of it or not. So it's really, really hard to get that consistency. This second point, I feel I've heard a lot of it, but I haven't seen it personally, and that is the perceived bias, favoritism, and the popularity game of the cosplay competition. So people saying, I'm not winning because the judges already have a pre-existing relationship with the competitors. I've seen that a ton. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I am not saying that doesn't happen because weirder things in the world have happened. However, I do feel like if you have 4 to 5 judges at a competition, it's kind of hard to have all 4 or 5 of them go, yeah, we're going to go with this guy because he's a buddy of ours. I feel like that is a little more, that's easier if you have only like 1 or 2 judges. Again, I don't know every cosplay competition. I'm just talking about the ones that I've been to. But again, I think that's an easy out for some people who just can't deal with the loss. And I do feel like we're going to talk about this a little more later, but I do feel like we do have a generation that doesn't know how to deal with loss that well. And I'm not shitting on Gen Z right now. I'm just shitting on people in general, because guess what? This guy, if you knew me before I started cosplaying, I could not deal with loss. I could not deal with critique. Like if I was 18 to 20-year-old Myers, if I went into a cosplay competition and I went to judging and a judge told me that my cosplay was not exact and not the best thing they've seen, I would want to rage. And I don't mean just like be upset, go on social media. I mean like rage. I was not good with that. But I've learned to deal with loss, and cosplay has helped me with that, thankfully. But I do feel like that is a very easy out for people who just haven't been able to deal with loss. And that's just something that is going to take time. The only way for me to learn how to lose was to lose. And they were all micro losses. It wasn't something like, I lost a family member or something. It was just going to cosplay competitions, working my tail off on a cosplay and going, this thing rocks, and going on stage and not winning a thing and being like, oh, like I don't have a Deathstroke cosplay because that was my second cosplay. I thought I rocked it. I thought the performance was great, and I won nothing. And I came home and that thing's in the garbage by the next day because I was not happy with it. But that was something that I had to deal with. And I think that's something that a lot of people just haven't been able to deal with. So I don't think there's as much bias and favoritism in the popularity game. I just don't think it's there as much as people say it is. But I'm not saying it doesn't exist. And I'm not saying that some cons can have that happen. Let's talk about chat. Noah, or people who are popular online and think that equates to skill. Again, I haven't seen that. But I do know a ton of influencers who have gone down the cosplay route because they know that is going to get them attention, and wearing certain cosplays is going to work. Favorites in cosplay judging take the fun out of the craft. A 100%. 100%. Boomster Joe also said everyone felt like a winner at Hamilton Comic Con. Yeah, and there are a lot of cosplay competitions that do that. That is one thing that I love that Anime North does so well, and that is they have a buttload of awards for the novice, and they have less for the journeyman, artisan, and masters. Because even if it's a BS award, that award might give the cosplayer the confidence to move on to the next round. Like, I've got 2 awards from Anime North the first time I did it. And one of them was when I did my Luigi cosplay, and I had the Ghostbusters music in the background, and the award was Hauntingly Hilarious Award. And I'm like, thank you. I know it's a BS award, but I appreciate that you were giving me the confidence of like, no, you're good enough. Just keep going. Like, you've got something, just keep pushing for it. And I think that's a great way to influence people. And I think that's a great way to keep people in the game, because I feel like if you don't give those people those awards, then they're just going to be like, well, I went up against 70 people and I didn't win. And I get that. I get how that can be heartbreaking. But those little bit of awards, and sooner or later, you're going to get to a point where you're going to hit the same point where I do, where you're like, that first one was a gimme, and I get it. But I appreciate it. I appreciate the little, keep going. So, so I don't think the perceived bias and favoritism is as bad as people think, but I think it happens, but I don't think it's as bad as people think. This one I think is one of the biggest problems right now, and it's kind of hard to figure out how to fix it, but I do think it is a big problem, and that is the barrier to entry for newcomers and lower budget builds. There is a problem now with cosplay competitions where as soon as you walk in the door, if you see someone with some crazy technique that only 5 people in the world can do, I'm sorry. I know they're going to win. I dealt with this when 3D printing first started. When 3D printing first started and it was like really stupid expensive to make things, it's not like today. I remember if an Iron Man walked in the room, they won. We might as well not even do the competition because I know they're going to win. That's the way it was because the Iron Man suits were so good, like Boomsters, it's like they walked off the screen. And now we've got a point where everything is so easily available. Sewing, you can watch sewing tutorials online. You can buy foam by the roll and almost, anywhere in the world. And then you've got 3D printing, which is stupidly easy. There's a lot of cosplayers that are wanting to do these crazy techniques that I feel like really hinders the amount of people wanting to get into it, because you see cosplayers up there and they're like, the host will say, this person hand stitched this entire cosplay using nothing but their teeth. And it's like, okay, but I don't know if I would consider that a great thing. Like, that seems like a waste of time to me. Like, I've definitely seen so many people in the Victorian side of cosplay who do these big Victorian gowns that look incredible, and they're like, and they made the underwear too, and I'm like, why? No one's gonna see that, but that's the thing that pushes them over the edge. And personally, I think that's a problem because there's no way certain people are going to be able to do that. There's like, I've definitely seen cosplayers post videos of showing other cosplayers during competitions where they're like, this technique was only used in 1555. And I'm like, but why? Like, great. I'm so glad you learned that. But I feel like there's not many people who have that time to do that. I had a cosplayer talk about someone who made their own shoes because their whole family were what's the word? Cobblers. And I'm like, that's great because they made their own shoes, but they had a line of heritage that knew how to do that. And I feel like that's something that I don't think that should be judged the same. But the problem is it just doesn't, it doesn't, I don't feel it should be a part of your, I don't feel it should be judged any higher than anything else that other people are doing. I feel like that might be a disadvantage for some people, or it should be noted depending on your level as a disadvantage. If you're a master, go nuts. Go nuts. If you're a master and you're like, my stuff is good enough to be on Hollywood and etc., I get it. But I've seen too many people as a novice come into a competition and have been like, I've never done this before, but I've also been sewing since I could walk. And you're like, no, I don't believe that. I don't think that should be done. But sadly, it happens. And I just feel like people see those and they're just like, okay, I can't compete. There's no way. There's absolutely no way I could compete with any of that. And I feel that way now as a cosplayer because I love comic books. I love video games, but I'm not a there's so much detail in these. There's no way I could compete with that type of detail because to deal with now. And that's why, like I said earlier, I don't feel like I compete sometimes because I just don't feel like I have the chance of winning. Let's jump over to the next one here. Lack of standardized feedback or constructive critiques. This is something I think a Comic-Con like Fan Expo is getting better at because I know they do have a Sunday after the competition where you can go and talk to people and they could talk to how they did. Oh, Nerdy Crystal saying we're breaking up. Let me take 1 second here and let me just give my... actually, I can't do it on that one because that is the wrong phone. Give me 1 second, folks. Talk amongst yourselves. Talk amongst yourselves. Let me it fixed itself. All right. Well, I just messaged the wife. We might have to kill one of the streams. We might have to kill Instagram, but we're going to see. We're going to see how it goes. I just saw the thing drop, and that's why I was like waiting for everybody to get back here. Okay, so lack of standardized feedback and critiquing. I think this is something that, again, Fan Expo's gotten better at. They've been able to do a Sunday get-together where you can go and talk to the judges about your cosplay, about your competition. I think that's great, and I think more conventions need to do that. I think we need to have judges that are very good at giving the feedback, and I think that kind of comes and goes with the competitions because, again, certain judges are better at giving that feedback than others, and this is where the leveling and sort of the understanding of, you know, what is required to be a judge. That's why I don't want to be one, because there's certain things about cosplay that I don't know about, and I feel like I don't want to be in that room being asked questions that I have no idea about. But yeah, I think we need to be a little more critiquing and understanding, and also going back to the beginning of our talk about people not being able to deal with that. I think that's something that people need to understand too. I think the contestants need to understand that as well, because the judges can be more than happy to give the feedback, but if the contestants aren't wanting to take it, that's tough, because you can be the best judge in the world and be like, hey, I'm willing to sit down for about an hour and tell you everything that was good and bad about your cosplay. But if the contestant doesn't want to hear it, if the contestant thinks they did a great job, nothing much I can do about that. So, but I do think giving the opportunity is a good thing. I think that's a good thing. Noah says, this is good as I'm going to actually compete this next year. I hope so. I hope you are. I hope you compete next year. And yeah, I think being able to take that feedback is going to be something that really helps a lot of people, because they can't, like, you can't sit there and just be like, everything's great. It's never going to be everything's great. There's always going to be something you can improve. And that's what the judges are there for. They're there to give you that feedback and to help you. This is one that Fan Expo's horrible at, and I really wish they would fix this. but for some reason they keep tripping over themselves for it. Last minute rejections and poor registration from organizers. Holy crap. I would love them to be able to figure out how to let cosplay participants know early that they are a part of the competition and not at the last bloody second. And I don't mean last bloody second as the day of, but like, give us a 3-month window of like, you're going to be a part of it. Even as a cosplay guest, I've heard cosplay guests be told like a month before they were going to go. I've had people who did the do you want to do your own panel, and they would get told the week of Fan Expo, hey, do you want to do a panel? And they're like, no, we're parents. We can't just drop our kid off whenever we feel like we have to plan shit. And yeah, they're not good at getting back to people quick enough. And I've sadly seen a ton of cosplayers who have worked on cosplays for that convention, and they've put in their application, they've worked their butts off, and then it comes to the point and they're like, okay, am I doing the competition? And then they get the message back. I'm like, no. And they're like, well, that would have been nice to know 4 or 5 months ago. I wish you would have told me, because then I could have worked on something else. But I've been working my butt off, and especially in the world now where it's not just building a cosplay, it's building a build book. So you have to do your cosplay, but then you also have to document everything throughout the build, and then build a build book and design a build book and bring that, like, it's so much more than just doing a cosplay. And there are people who, and I laugh every time anybody tells me like the story about my friends who did the panel and then were told the week of. Fan Expo believes that they're just like, everyone's just going. And it's like, no, not everyone is just going to Fan Expo. And while you're here, would you like to do something? It's like, no, if you're not invited for some things, like there's probably some cosplay groups or some groups in general who, if they're not chosen to get a booth or something, they're not going to come because that's just going to cost them too much money. So to find out last minute about stuff like this is just something that I feel should be fixed, especially by the biggest convention runners in North America. Like, you do these so many times and you just fumble every time. I think it's because they're probably understaffed and there's probably one team working on all of these conventions and they're just like tripping over themselves trying to get to the next convention. But, you know, Pretty Nerdy Crystal said, 100% true. I was told 1 month before and hadn't finished something and half-assed it and haven't worn it since. Exactly. You were a cosplay guest and you found out a month before the convention. So if you don't have everything ready, and if you're a guest, that isn't just cosplay, that is making sure you have possibly prints, things you're going to sell, props if you want to bring it, table stuff, like a handler, like, you're going to have to bring someone with you. If you're like me and I go solo pretty much to conventions, if I get told at the last minute, okay, now I have to find a friend to come along with me. Not as easy as you might think, but whatever. Next point. I think we need more casual masquerades and cosplay competitions. I feel like it would be a great gateway into the cosplay community and into the competition world. I think every competition wants to do like a Fan Expo or like an Anime North where it's so award-centric and, you know, there's going to be judging on craftsmanship and make a build book and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, if you want to do that, that's great. If you want to be that kind of cosplayer that does all that, that's great. But I don't feel like that's for everybody. And I feel like if they had a chance to experience what a cosplay competition is without being actually hardcore into the cosplay competition, I think that might get some more people to do this. For example, Fan Expo Canada, because I'm going to use that one because I'm pretty sure it's the same across the board for every other Fan Expo. You go in, You go backstage, you sit backstage, they take you one each on stage, you talk or you strike 3 poses, you walk off stage, the judges go to the back, and there's kind of dead air. In that time, for Fan Expo Canada specifically, they have, I believe her name is Bridget Fiddle, who is a violin player in the Ontario area. And she comes out and does a song or 2 or 5 in some points. And she plays, which is great because she's a great player. Why not, in that time, because you have a room full of people who have come to a cosplay competition looking to see cosplayers, why don't you say, here's the people who are going to compete in the cosplay competition, and while the judges are in the back, we've also got a whole bunch of people who have bought, stolen, made, whatever, their cosplays, and they just want to show them off because they think they're cool. We're gonna have them walk across the stage. They're gonna strike a couple poses. We're gonna say their name, what the character is, and gonna walk off stage. We're gonna give them a crisp high five at the end. Bingo, bango, done. Doesn't cost any money. Doesn't take up any more time. Again, nothing against Bridget Fiddle. She's a great player. She's a great person. But you're telling me you wouldn't have a bunch of people just going like, hey, you bought that Zentai suit of Superman. You look really good. Go, like, line up. Let's do it. Boomster Joe says, why don't they do that? Beats me. Beats me. They did it 1 year. And I was literally, it was 1 year where I didn't compete. So for those who don't know, I've competed at Fan Expo 9 times. 2021 or 2022, I dressed up as always, but I didn't compete, but I wanted to go watch the masquerade. I was sitting out in the lineup to go into the theater, and someone stuck their head out and said, is there anyone here for walk-on? And I didn't know what that was, so I was like, not me. And then they let us in. They did the competition, and then they did that. And I was like, I would have done that. Like, why not? And they've never done it since. And I don't know why. I don't know why they don't do it. But they should. Because again, you have so many cosplayers there on the Saturday. Just have someone from Fan Expo or have someone from the Masquerade or whatever just walk around and be like, hey, your costume is dope. I know you don't want to probably be a part of the competition, but if you want to come down and just walk across the stage, go for it. The red carpet thing is fun, but if they had the experience where people can walk on stage in front of people, exactly. And they do that for the red carpet, and I appreciate that, but I just don't feel like it's the same. I feel like if you went down and I feel like if they did it at the actual competition, it would be better. I feel like the red carpet, it's kind of cool, but I just don't feel it's enough. I feel like they could do more having the whole stage thing downstairs. But that's me. And Pretty Nerd Crystal, exactly. I miss every single red carpet because the line is insane. Agreed. Insert issue with fit. Yeah. They had the walk on. Yeah. We got a couple points left. I'm going to get you guys out of here. This is something I feel is coming out of specifically my side of the cosplay world, not being a seamster. The community pressure to do certain things. And I feel like this is similar to what I talked about earlier, where I don't feel like I can compete if I just do foam armor anymore. I don't feel like I can compete with 3D printing anymore. I feel like I have to sew. And honestly, I don't want to. I will sew if I need to, Like if I'm doing a cosplay and the cosplay is 99% foam and there's a little bit of sewing and it's going to make my life easier. For example, my Judge Dredd. I did sew the pouches for my Judge Dredd because that's how you make a pouch. Like that's kind of what had to be done. But knowing that you have to do, feeling like I have to sew, I just feel I feel like that's shitty. I really feel like that's a shitty way to do it because I can sew. I just don't want to. And I think about the people out there who are amazing foamsters and the amazing 3D printers out there. And I just feel like there's probably people out there who just can't sew. And they're just looking at it going, there's no way I can compete anymore. I don't feel like you can, I don't feel like I can. And I can sew a bit. I can just imagine how they feel. That's my mom. I just don't feel like I compete anymore. So I have to learn to sew if I want to keep competing. And that's just the way it is. That is also, I also have to look at it from, this is a thing that I decided to do. I decided to be a cosplayer. So I also can't really bitch about it because that's what I chose to do. There's a line that I quote every single time when I'm talking about something like this, and it's from Paul Stanley from Kiss, and he's talking to a reporter about wearing the makeup and wearing the platform boots and all that stuff, and he's like, hey, people are asking him, what's it like to wear that day in, day out? It's got to get tiring. And he's like, dude, this is what I chose to do. I can't, and I'm doing it great, and I'm making a bunch of money. I can't complain about it. And he always says the line of, if you become the president, you can't then complain about wearing a tie. It comes with the territory. It's just the way it is. So I know that I'm going to have to advance my cosplay skills. I just don't feel like it should be pushed that you have to sew at this point. I think it was one of the guys who kind of runs the cosplay competitions at a couple conventions put out a question to different cosplayers asking what way should they judge cosplay competitions. Should it be level, like novice, journeyman, master? Should it be I can't remember how many years you were in the cosplay world, or should it be by sort of category? Like, should it be all 3D printers compete with each other, all foamsters compete with each other, all seamsters compete with each other? And I said, that's exactly the way we should do it, because some people only want to do a certain thing. They don't want to go more. But I don't feel like, and because the competitions are getting so tight and so many applications, it's hard to be like, well, there's 50 amazing cosplays. How do I pick? That's something they probably have to deal with on a daily basis, trying to pick out of hundreds and hundreds of competitors, pick 50 to do a cosplay competition. That's another reason why I used to love the way they did it when there was 80 of them at Fan Expo, and the costume contest was hours long and nobody left because everyone was having a good time. Can someone just say competing at novice or journeyman? If you've never competed before, you're going to be probably put in novice unless you have stupidly good skills. If you have stupidly good skills, they will push you up. Like if you're like, I've never competed before, but then they're like, but this cosplay looks like you're Iron Man. Your Iron Man might be close to going into a journeyman because it's so good. And if it was just the suit, you'd probably be a novice. But because you did all the electronics, like you had the back fins move and the mask goes up, they might bump you up to journeyman. Just be like, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. But yeah. Couple more left. Unclear rules and inconsistent enforcement, especially be made between self-made and self-taught. This happens all the time. It's kind of hard to compete with that. Like, you should know if something's been self-made or self-bought. That's what the build book is kind of good for, is you can kind of document, okay, I built this, I built that, I built that. But some competitions don't need a build book. So if I was a judge and you walked in with a, my Gambit coat and you went, I made that. I have no idea if you did or not. I'm not a seamster. So I would go, sure, because I can't tell. Even if I looked at the tag, I'd be like, yeah, probably made his own tag. Like, I don't know because I'm not a seamster. But it's tough to do that with some judges because you might have to pick people that don't have as much experience as you might want. Like, you might want these world-class judges that have done cosplay for thousands of years and have decades of experience and know every intricate detail. You might show up and have 3 people that have done this for 2 years. At that point, what do? You can't cancel the competition. You kind of just have to do what you do and try your best to make it as best you can. Ironically, I'm not nervous about competing. I'm nervous about build books. Build books are stupidly easy as long as you document it. And I'm terrible at it. I am terrible at it. I actually have a PDF that I can send. I might actually make it public that you guys can download. It's a Canva file, and it's seriously, do a cover page, do an intro page of who you are, do a page of I did 2 pages of reference photos just because if it's a comic book character, 10 billion artists will draw it 10 billion different ways. So I just usually do 2 different versions or 2 sets of reference photos. And then I just break it down 1 page at a time, each piece. So for Judge Dredd, page about the helmet, all the steps I did. Here's some photos of what it looked like. As I was building it. Next one, shoulder pieces, neck part. Next one was the pouches, the boots, the belt, the gun. And that's how I did it. Just did it. Each page had 1 piece. And if you're doing sewing, I know they like it if you do fabric swatches on there to show the fabrics you used, techniques, stuff like that. It's really easy. I think a lot of people make it way more complicated than it needs to be, but it's actually really simple. Can I just show the judges my Pinterest page for a costume? That'd be nice. That'd be really nice if you could. But yeah, there are debates and controversies when contestants. The pre-made stuff. It's going to happen all the time. There's nothing you can do about it. All the judges can do is put as many barriers as they can, like build books, like having expert judges, to help combat that. Other than that, you're always going to have someone try and get in, because if they get in and they win, or even just walking across the stage, that might just be enough that they want and they can put on their social that they were part of a cosplay competition. It's something that you can't really fight that much, except putting in enough barriers to try and compete with it. Kind of going what we just talked about, but making an actual point. Overworked and underqualified judges, more the first than the second. Overworked judges is something I've seen at a bunch of different conventions. Judges that are doing way too much. And I know that certain cons want the judges to do certain things. Like if you're a judge at a certain competition, you may have to do a certain amount of panels while being at the con. And that might not be, if it's the 3-day con and you say you can do 3 panels, that might not be a panel a day. That could be a bunch altogether. And then you have to do judging, and you have to judge a bunch of contestants. And then you have to be there at the end for the cosplay competition. And then you have to debate. That sounds like a whole ton of work that you're not being paid for, or probably not being paid a lot. And again, you kind of signed up for it, so but that's a lot. Lady Hickory said part of the benefits of a build book is the judges can reference it while doing their judging. 100%. As someone who handles cosplay craftsmanship, judge a lot. Yes, 100%. It is good to have that for them to look at while you're doing your presentation. I know that at least the 2 times that I've done a build book, I have talked to the judges after, and they have both referenced my build book as something that has helped them choose me. So it does help. Boomster Joe said I never got my build book back in Hamilton. I never plan to. Every convention I've been to, they're like, oh yeah, you'll get your build book back at the end. And I'm like, no, I won't. No, I won't. I just say it's a one-time purchase that's going out the door. I'm never getting that back. Yeah, I feel like definitely the overwork thing is a problem, because I've seen at least one judge that had, I believe, 2 panels that day, then had to do judging for the competition, then go back to their booth, and then go to the convention, go to the masquerade, do the masquerade, sit with the judges at the end, figure out like all of this in like not even 24 hours, all of this in like 10 hours. And I'm like, that's a lot. So that's a lot for somebody. Even if you're a great cosplayer and you're a great judge, that's a lot to do in a day. So I think some of them are a little too overworked. And I think overall, we would love to just have a easily transparent, fair way of understanding what the judges are looking for and what the criteria is. And I think that's something that will solve a lot of these problems, because like I said, I know that there are some cosplay judges that are giant, incredible seamsters that have incredible skill level. And I don't feel like if I walk in with a foam build, I personally don't feel like I'm getting an equal judging, because I don't know how much foam they have. I don't know how much experience they have with foam. So a technique that might be so hard to figure out and to execute in foam, they might not understand. They might be a seamster, and you might end up with 4 or 5 seamsters. So that could be a problem. Lady Hickory in chat says most cons require judges to work a certain amount of hours as part of the con. Agree. Yes, and I know Fan Expo is one of those, but it's how much, and that's the problem. Is that, like I said, if it's, you have to do 3 panels, those panels might not be 1, 2, 3 days. I've seen some where it's been 2 panels in the morning, and then they got to do something else, and then something else. You're barely at your bloody table that day because you're running around so much. And I feel like that's not fair. And I don't feel like that makes a good judge, because they've got their head in 10 billion pots at that point. Plus, they also want to be at their table because they want to make some money. I think having a variety of talents in judges is key. Yes, the problem is it doesn't always happen. I do think you should have an expert foam judge. You should have an expert seamster. You should have an expert 3D printer. You should have an expert lights and electronics. You should have an expert if there is if there's a performance side, there needs to be someone who knows how to perform. That is big. And I feel like, thankfully, Anime North has that. But I think if Fan Expo gets that, and I bugged them, because that's the way Fan Expo used to be, where you used to do a performance. If they went back to that, I would be worried that they wouldn't find someone who has a ton of performance experience. And I feel like they would just get the crowd cheered. And it's like, yeah, the crowd cheered, but there needs to be a little more than just crowd cheered. So they don't get a variety of judges who work with different materials and mediums. Some do. Some don't. And that's the problem, is that you don't always get the judges you want. Some do have a ton, some don't. I think you should have one of every type of expertise. And the expertise, there's expertise in a billion different things, but I think foam, sewing, 3D printing, electronics / smoke and all that stuff, and have a performance. I think you should have 5. Because then you have an expert in everything, and then you can get the different standpoints. You can get the people who are the experts in that, but then you also get the people who aren't experts in that, and they could say, well, this goes back to the sewing thing, where the sewers would go, that's a really intricate technique that not many people can do, but you may have the 4 other judges go, yeah, but this sewing or this foamsmith guy, he did this really crazy technique that about 5 people only know. And they'll both go, oh, well, I didn't know that. And then you have a growth, and you also have people judges communicating with each other and learning things. Boomster Joe said 5 is a good number. I think it is. I think it's diverse enough that you're going to have experts in everything. Again, you're not always going to get 5, but personally, if I had the con and done it my way, how many judges are there at Expo? 4, 3, depending on which one. I know Anime North has 5. Anime North usually has 5. I think sometimes they have 4 just because that's what ends up happening. But yeah, I just think having transparency and fairness and just trying to get it as fair across the board. I know, for example, and this might piss off anybody that's at Fan Expo, I know when I go to Anime North and I tell them what I've won at Expo, they laugh at Expo Awards. They laugh at Expo Awards because Anime North is part of the Cosplay Guild, which is a group of cons that sort of judge everything in the same fairness and the same light. If you win at Anime North Master Award, that is the same level as da-da-da-da-da-da. I know that they would laugh at this because I've won 4 Fan Expo Awards. And last year, when I competed as Gambit, which I knew I wasn't going to win a craftsmanship award because it's just the code spot and all that, when I told them I was bumping myself up to Journeyman, because I was still a novice, I said, no, I'm going to bump myself up to Journeyman. They're all like, but you haven't won enough awards for Journeyman. And I said, guys, I know you don't see Fan Expo awards as equal, but I've been doing this long enough and I've won enough awards in cosplay. I'm bumping myself up because if you put me as novice for most importantly, the presentation and the stage performance, I feel like a jerk because I've competed on stage doing performances for 10 years. Like, no, I am not a novice anymore. I don't care what y'all think. I'll bump myself. And when I talk to them about the Fan Expo Awards, they're like, we don't care about Fan Expo Awards. They mean nothing to us because their judging can be so all over the place. So what is the Cosplay Guild, Boomster? So the Cosplay Guild is a group of cons and masquerades and cosplay competitions that they've all kind of come together and sort of decided equally how to judge a cosplay competition, and they all of the awards for these cons are equal. So like if you win one at this con, it will equal the same at this con, and they will, if you're a master at this, you're a master at this. It's a little hard to explain because I don't know a lot about it because honestly I really don't care, but I know that they take it very seriously, and if they want to, if you want to master in this award, in this convention and as part of the guild, and you come in as like a novice, they're going to be like, nope, you're bumping rep to master. I don't care what you say. I think it's not a bad idea if you can get everybody to do it, but the problem is getting everybody to agree with it. And I know Fan Expo is too big of a corporate beast to get them to agree to anything than what they're already doing, which some might say ain't much, but that's just the way it is. Yeah, you're never going to get it completely accurate and completely perfect across the board with everybody, but I think if we can if we could get all the cons to just write out in as best detail as they can all the things that we would want to know as a cosplayer. Do we want to know what we're being judged? Are we being judged on certain things? Is there certain things that mean more than others? Are there certain things that, I don't know. The big one I think that would make things a lot easier is what's equal across the board. What sewing technique means the same as a 3D printing technique as the same as a foamsmith technique? Because like if I build my own patterns in Blender, does that equal the same as I like I said earlier, hand stitched with my teeth. Like, what does that equal? Because like I said, I don't think a lot of people think that that's equal. I think people think sewing is up here, 3D printing, if you build your own files, is here, and foam smithing is like beginner. And I don't say that as me. I say that as I've heard many foam smith cosplayers tell me the same thing. So if I have a couple telling me, then there's probably a lot out there that haven't told me. Boomster Joe said, I tried competing for the first time this year, and I'm honestly not sure if it's something I enjoy. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. I say everyone should try it once. Try it once. And I always say, try it at a con that does the performance side. Because the performance side is a completely different animal. If you want to just walk on stage and you are absolutely horrified of being on the stage, just do a regular con. I get it. But I still would say try to do the performance side at least once, because it's such a different animal and it's so much more fun and it's so much more showy of your cosplay. And I feel that's something that will make people want to come back and want to do more with their cosplay, because there's that other element. I feel like if you just walk on stage, like you go on after this, go on my YouTube page and go to my videos and see my Red Arsenal cosplay performance. You can tell I'm not happy, because this was the first time where they're like, oh yeah, you're going to get 30 seconds on stage. And I'm like, what's the point? What's the point? Boomster Joe says, what performance? Anime North. Anime North has the performance. Anime North, you get up to a minute on stage. You can bring your own audio and you can perform. If you need they're called ninjas. It's assistants. They're in black. If you need them to assist you in anything, you can. If you check out my YouTube page, my Luigi cosplay from 2022 is one of them. My Gambit from this year was at Anime North. Is it okay to compete in the cosplay? It's not anime. Yeah, I did Gambit. I've done Ghost Rider. I've done Luigi. Yeah, I'm not an anime fan, so it doesn't matter. Anime North is just what is the main thing there. But no, there's also video game stuff there. Like I said, I don't do anime. The animeest cosplay I have is Dan from Street Fighter, and that's not even really anime. It's a video game. So I tell everybody, go to Anime North once. It is such a fun con. It is so big on cosplay. This is a con where the con is in 3 buildings technically. And there are people, a lot of people, who go to this con and don't step foot inside. They don't pay for admission. They just hang outside and hang out in cosplay. They take over the parking lot. It is such a fun con. So I tell everybody to go once. I missed it because I was out of country. Yeah, it happens. It happens. It's a weird weekend. Like, it's right after 2-4 weekend, and that's usually the busy. Like, people who don't do 2-4 usually do something right after it. So I get it if you're busy. So yeah, that's it. We've gone a little long. We're an hour 8 into it. Yeah, I think if we just had some clarity, put it on the websites in the most detail, like, this is what you're getting yourself into. This is why you're being judged. These are who the judges are going to be, or at least we're going to have an expert in every type of stuff. Just make it as clear cut as possible. I think that'll make everybody's life a lot easier. It'll make people want to do competitions. And I think in the end, it'll make the competitions a lot more fun. And I said this every time we do a Fan Expo review. I say this every single time. The room for the Fan Expo Masquerade is got to be 1,500 people capacity. The first 4 or 5 years I competed, that room was standing room only. It was loaded. Now, probably about a couple hundred show up. And that sucks, because you worked all your time and you got all that nerve together to go up on stage, and only a couple hundred people are there to see it. And by the way, they don't record it. which I don't understand either. They don't record the bloody performance. Anyways, but yeah, that's it. That's it. I hope I made a good point. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. If you guys like this, let me know. Hit that like button, the subscribe button, the follow button, all those things. Same with you guys on TikTok and same with you guys on Instagram. Where are we? We're on the 8th of December. What is coming up? We've got a couple shows ahead of us. We're going to do one more show, which will be a topic I have to figure out. And then on the 22nd, we are going to do a end of year wrap-up show. And then after that, we're going to take the 29th off for the holiday season because you guys are going to be busy with the holiday season. And I'm going to be busy with the holiday season. And then we'll be back in the new year in January. I greatly appreciate you guys being here tonight. I know I kept you late. I hope it didn't take you too long. I want you all to have a good night. I want you guys to enjoy yourselves. We're going to be live on TikTok probably a couple times this week, finishing off some 3D prints and doing some other stuff. So if you want to follow me on TikTok, I will be live there. And if not, I will see you all here next week live on the podcast. Have yourselves a good night. Love you all. We'll see you soon. Take care. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.